Have you ever noticed that the more you try to force something to happen, the more it seems to slip away? You commit, you visualize, you pray, you affirm every day that everything will work out. But deep down, something inside you remains restless, as if life is always one step away, as if the universe is listening, but never really responding. And maybe no one ever told you this directly, but you can feel it. There's something wrong with the path they taught you. They made you believe that in order to create the life of your dreams, you'd need to wage war against yourself. That manifestation requires brutal effort, complex rituals, total control of your thoughts, perfect breathing, endless meditations. That in order to attract what you want, you must prove your worth through spiritual exhaustion. But what if that's exactly what's keeping you from everything you desire? What if the real secret of quantum manifestation is so simple, so fluid, so natural, that that's why almost no one sees it? Yes. What if life isn't waiting for you to fight harder, but to align deeper? This idea might feel uncomfortable at first, I know, because you were conditioned to believe that everything worthwhile must come through suffering, that in order to win, you must run, that in order to receive, you must earn it, that to manifest, you must master 1,000 techniques. But quantum physics, when seen through the lens of consciousness, reveals a truth that changes everything. The universe doesn't respond to your effort. It responds to your coherence. And here's the detail no one ever told you. You are already manifesting your reality all the time, not with what you want, but with what you are. And what are you right now? A field of possibility, or a field of doubt? Maybe you're mentally repeating, "I am prosperous," while your heart is still trapped in fear of lack. Maybe you crave a great love, but your body holds the memory of rejection. Maybe you affirm health, but your breath is still stuck in expectation of collapse. And the quantum field doesn't respond to the words that come out of your mouth. It responds to the signal vibrating from your being. But what if I told you that you don't need to force anything anymore? That the key isn't to think harder or work harder, but to become the frequency of what you wish to experience. From now on, you're going to discover why most modern techniques fail. You'll understand how the collapse of possibilities works, how your body, your emotions, and your cellular memory influence the field. And above all, you will remember that manifestation isn't about chasing, it's about remembering. And before we go deeper into this journey, I invite you into something symbolic yet powerful. Comment the number 99 down below. This number represents the transition from repeating old cycles to entering a new frequency. 99 is the moment before rebirth, the portal where your old self begins to dissolve, and the new one begins to emerge. And if you feel this journey is yours, if you want to keep exploring this field of consciousness, subscribe to the channel now. We're building something sacred here, and we have a goal to reach 1,000 subscribers who genuinely resonate with this truth. Each new subscriber is not just a number. It's the field expanding, a vibration rising, a consciousness choosing to remember its power. So, shall we walk this path together? Because what comes next may forever change the way you relate to reality. We've been lied to from the moment we began to ask the question, how do I create the life I desire? The answer that echoed back was one rooted in struggle. Work harder, do more. Think positive thoughts even when you're breaking inside. Repeat the affirmations, the mantras, the scripting, and if it's not working yet, then you're probably not trying hard enough. But what if that very effort is the frequency that's repelling the life you're chasing? What if the idea that you must fight for your desires is the single greatest illusion holding you back? Most people approach manifestation like a war against their current circumstances. They bulldoze their energy into the future, hoping to break down the walls of lack with brute force. They repeat mantras they don't believe, visualize outcomes. They secretly question and suppress their emotions in the name of staying high vibe. They force themselves into a spiritual performance and call it alignment. But the quantum field is not fooled, because in the quantum realm, force is friction, desperation is interference, and control is resistance. You can say all the right words, you can envision your dream reality down to the smallest detail, but if your body is locked in anxiety, if your breath is shallow, if your nervous system is on high alert, then what the field receives is not your vision, it's your vibration. And here's the paradox. The more you chase it, the more you affirm that it's not here. The more you seek, the more you broadcast that you are separate from it. And separation is the wound that keeps your desires from materializing. Think about how most people operate. They wake up feeling behind. They measure their progress obsessively. They declare their goals while secretly bracing for disappointment. They do all the things, but do them from a place of lack. And the field? The field reflects not your words, but your state. Not your willpower, but your resonance. Let's pause here. Can you feel the weight of all the times you've tried to do it right, only to spiral deeper into frustration? Can you recognize the loop of effort, doubt, always hoping the next thing will be the one? This is the illusion of struggle, the belief that trying harder will bring you closer to what you seek. But in the quantum field, trying harder does not equal manifesting faster. In fact, the more intense the effort, the more unstable the frequency. Because coherence, not intensity, is what shapes reality. So here's the uncomfortable truth, and the liberating one. You cannot manifest the life you desire from the energy of trying to escape the one you have. Because that energy, no matter how disguised, still broadcasts fear. And fear collapses the wave of possibility into more of the same. This is where most teachings fall short. They tell you to visualize, affirm, think positively. But they ignore the deeper layer, the energy you're carrying while you do those things. And so people go through the motions, perform the rituals, repeat the words, but nothing changes, because underneath the practice, they're still vibrating fear. And the quantum field never responds to performance, it responds to truth. So, the question isn't, am I doing enough? It's, what is the true signal I'm sending beneath the performance? And if that signal is scattered, if it's layered in self-doubt, urgency or pain, no amount of positive thinking will override it. But take heart, because the solution isn't more effort. It's more honesty, more stillness, more surrender to coherence. In the quantum realm, you don't attract by chasing, you attract by aligning. You don't need to overpower your current reality. You need to harmonize with the version of you who already lives the one you desire. Not because she's perfect, not because he has everything figured out, but because they have remembered something you're about to remember, that peace is more magnetic than pressure, that clarity is more powerful than control, that wholeness is more attractive than hustle. And most of all, that manifestation begins not when you force life to move, but when you stop trying to outrun yourself. So ask yourself, where have I been using effort to mask fear? Where have I been performing instead of aligning? Where have I confused action with embodiment? Because the truth is, what you chase, you push away. But what you become, you effortlessly attract. And when you release the illusion of struggle, the field becomes quiet, your signal becomes clear, and reality begins to shift. not because you demanded it, but because you finally allowed it. We've been lied to. From the moment we began to ask the question, how do I create the life I desire? The answer that echoed back was one rooted in struggle. Work harder, do more. Think positive thoughts. Even when you're breaking inside, repeat the affirmations, the mantras, the scripting, and if it's not working yet, then you're probably not trying hard enough. But what if that very effort is the frequency that's repelling the life you're chasing? What if the idea that you must fight for your desires is the single greatest illusion holding you back? Most people approach manifestation like a war against their current circumstances. They bulldoze their energy into the future, hoping to break down the walls of lack with brute force. They repeat mantras they don't believe, visualize outcomes. They secretly question and suppress their emotions in the name of staying high vibe. They force themselves into a spiritual performance and call it alignment. But the quantum field is not fooled, because in the quantum realm, force is friction, desperation is interference, and control is resistance. You can say all the right words, you can envision your dream reality down to the smallest detail, but if your body is locked in anxiety, if your breath is shallow, if your nervous system is on high alert, then what the field receives is not your vision, it's your vibration. And here's the paradox. The more you chase it, the more you affirm that it's not here. The more you seek, the more you broadcast that you are separate from it. And separation is the wound that keeps your desires from materializing. Think about how most people operate. They wake up feeling behind. They measure their progress obsessively. They declare their goals while secretly bracing for disappointment. They do all the things, but do them from a place of lack. And the field? The field reflects not your words, but your state. Not your willpower, but your resonance. Let's pause here. Can you feel the weight of all the times you've tried to do it right, only to spiral deeper into frustration? Can you recognize the loop of effort, doubt, always hoping the next thing will be the one? This is the illusion of struggle, the belief that trying harder will bring you closer to what you seek. But in the quantum field, trying harder does not equal manifesting faster. In fact, the more intense the effort, the more unstable the frequency. Because coherence, not intensity, is what shapes reality. So here's the uncomfortable truth, and the liberating one. You cannot manifest the life you desire from the energy of trying to escape the one you have. Because that energy, no matter how disguised, still broadcasts fear. And fear collapses the wave of possibility into more of the same. This is where most teachings fall short. They tell you to visualize, affirm, think positively. But they ignore the deeper layer, the energy you're carrying while you do those things. And so people go through the motions, perform the rituals, repeat the words, but nothing changes, because underneath the practice, they're still vibrating fear. And the quantum field never responds to performance, it responds to truth. So, the question isn't, am I doing enough? It's, what is the true signal I'm sending beneath the performance? And if that signal is scattered, if it's layered in self-doubt, urgency or pain, no amount of positive thinking will override it. But take heart, because the solution isn't more effort. It's more honesty, more stillness, more surrender to coherence. In the quantum realm, you don't attract by chasing, you attract by aligning. You don't need to overpower your current reality. You need to harmonize with the version of you who already lives the one you desire. Not because she's perfect, not because he has everything figured out, but because they have remembered something you're about to remember, that peace is more magnetic than pressure, That clarity is more powerful than control. That wholeness is more attractive than hustle. And most of all, that manifestation begins not when you force life to move, but when you stop trying to outrun yourself. So ask yourself, where have I been using effort to mask fear? Where have I been performing instead of aligning? Where have I confused action with embodiment? Because the truth is, what you chase, you push away. But what you become, you effortlessly attract. And when you release the illusion of struggle, the field becomes quiet, your signal becomes clear, and reality begins to shift, not because you demanded it, but because you finally allowed it. Here's a truth that may quietly shatter everything you thought you knew. You're not here to create reality from nothing. You're here to collapse the version of reality that already exists. Yes, in the quantum field, every possible outcome already exists. Your highest joy and your deepest despair, abundance and scarcity, love and loneliness, vitality and decline, all of it, not metaphorically, not spiritually, literally, all of these timelines float as waves, invisible, fluid, unformed. Each one is a potential version of your life waiting to be observed, and that's the key, waiting to be observed. In quantum mechanics, this is known as the observer effect, the principle that particles exist as probabilities until a conscious observer focuses attention on them. At that moment, the wave collapses into form. In other words, your focus chooses which reality becomes real. Now pause. Let that sink in. This means you're not manifesting outcomes by creating them from thin air. You are selecting from a field of infinite options, and your selection tool isn't effort. It's your state of being. The more coherent your internal state, the clearer the signal. The clearer the signal, the stronger the collapse. The stronger the collapse, the faster your chosen timeline materializes. But here's the part no one talks about, and the reason so many people feel stuck. Your unconscious is also observing. Let that hit you. Even if you consciously desire wealth, if your unconscious is still fixated on survival, fear, and scarcity, that's the observer the field is responding to. Even if you think, I want love, but your body is still holding the vibration of rejection, the field picks up that signal, not the one you speak, but the one you suppress. Because in the quantum realm, the unconscious always wins, not because it's more powerful, but because it's more consistent. And the field does not respond to desire. It responds to consistency. This explains why you can want something deeply and still repel. Why your words say yes, but your body whispers no. Why your heart longs, but your nervous system guards. So here's the shift. Manifestation is not about convincing the universe. It's about aligning every part of your consciousness to one timeline. Thoughts, emotions, trauma patterns, breath, posture, beliefs, even your muscle memory, all of them are observers. All of them are choosing, even when you're unaware. And now, you may be wondering, how do I take control of this process without forcing it? How do I stop letting my unconscious sabotage my intentions? The answer is both scientific and spiritual. You bring your awareness home, you turn inward, you slow down, you start to feel instead of think. You notice the hidden programs running in the background. You begin to observe the observer. And in doing so, you begin to rewrite it. And here's the most liberating part. You don't need to eliminate every shadow or heal every wound before you manifest. You just need to create enough coherence between your conscious desire and your unconscious patterns that the signal becomes stable enough for the field to respond. Because when your inner and outer selves begin pointing in the same direction, that's when the timeline locks in. Let's take a breath here. This is no longer about thinking positive. It's not about faking joy or forcing gratitude. This is about owning your role as the collapser of possibility. not as a victim of life, not as a performer for the universe, but as the selector of your own dimension. So ask yourself, gently and honestly, what have I been observing unconsciously? What do I focus on when no one's watching? What timeline have I been keeping alive through fear, even as I pray for something else? Because the moment you become aware of that unconscious observation, you gain the power to change it. And from that point on, reality stops feeling like something that happens to you and starts becoming something that happens through you. Not because you forced it, not because you earned it, but because you finally remembered you are the observer. And you always have been. If your manifestations feel inconsistent, if you've done everything right, but reality still reflects the same old patterns, there's a reason, and that reason is this: you are not a single frequency being. You are transmitting at 3 distinct energetic layers, and most people are only working with one. Let's break this down. The first layer is what most of us already know: your conscious thoughts. This is the surface. What you think, what you say, what you intend. It's what you focus on when you script, visualize, or affirm. It's also the easiest to control and often the most deceptive, because just beneath the conscious layer lies the second, more potent frequency, your emotional body. This is what you're actually feeling, not what you're trying to feel, not what you're pretending to feel, but the truth that pulses beneath your mental affirmations. You might say, "I am abundant," but your chest is tight, your stomach is anxious, your breath is shallow. That emotional field contradicts your mental intention, and the quantum picks up both. But it doesn't stop there, because there's a third, often invisible force at play, the most powerful layer of all: your cellular memory. This is the imprint of your lived experiences. The trauma you've inherited, the abandonment your nervous system still guards against. The memories of rejection, fear, scarcity, or shame, stored not in your mind, but in your body. These patterns live in your fascia, your muscles, your breath, your reflexes, long after your conscious mind has moved on. And here's the key: the quantum field reads all 3 layers at once. It doesn't just listen to what you think. It listens to who you are beneath the words. And when there's a mismatch, it reflects the strongest signal. And that signal is almost always the one embedded in your body. This is why so many people get trapped in what feels like a cruel cycle. They affirm abundance, but manifest lack. They visualize love, but experience distance. They repeat positive statements, but live in emotional exhaustion, not because they're doing something wrong, but because their body is still carrying an unconscious memory that contradicts their conscious desire. Let me illustrate. Imagine you had a childhood where money always meant stress, where love meant instability, where success came with guilt or pressure. Your cells remember that. And now, as an adult, you say you want financial flow. But deep down, your body tenses when money enters the room. Your breath shortens, your shoulders lock, your heart rate shifts, and that becomes the signal. That is what the field responds to, not the vision board, not the mantra, not the script, but the unresolved signal running through your biology. And here's where the real shift begins. The goal is not to force a new thought. It's to align all 3 layers, thought, emotion, and memory, into coherence. This is what I call quantum. Coherence, the state in which every layer of your being is broadcasting the same signal, the same timeline, the same choice. And in that moment, something extraordinary happens. You become magnetic, not hypothetically, literally. Your energy stops sending mixed messages. Your system stops pulling in opposite directions, and the quantum field, at last, can mirror back a clean, unified frequency. But this doesn't happen through affirmations alone. It doesn't come from faking positivity or bypassing emotion. It comes from embodiment, from emotional honesty, from nervous system healing, from becoming aware of the patterns in your body that are still clinging to the old timeline and giving them a new story to believe in. And that process begins not with control, but with compassion. Compassion for the part of you that still fears love, compassion for the younger self that never felt safe, compassion for the unconscious survival strategies that once protected you, but no longer serve you now. Because here's the truth, you don't have to fight these parts. You have to integrate them. And once you do, the field shifts with you. Not because you finally earned it, but because you finally stopped contradicting it. So let me ask you something deeply personal. What part of your being is still broadcasting the past? What memory might be silently driving your current timeline? What emotion lives beneath your affirmations that you've never dared to name? Because when you answer those questions, you begin to unify the fractured broadcast. You stop manifesting by accident. And you start manifesting by design, not through pressure, not through perfection, but through pure energetic coherence. And in the quantum realm, coherence is creation. You're told to visualize abundance, but no one teaches you to dissolve the scarcity wired into your cellular memory. You're told to speak affirmations, but you're not shown how to feel safe enough to believe them. So what happens? You say the words, you do the practices, you hope, you wait, you check, you try again, but nothing sticks. And it's not because the universe is testing you. It's because you're sending mixed signals, and the quantum field reflects that confusion perfectly. This is what I call the fragmentation trap. You think one thing, feel another, and act from a third. You're torn in three directions and wonder why reality won't move. The field doesn't speak English, it speaks vibration. And vibration is always honest. You can say, I am love. But if your energy says, I don't feel worthy, the field hears the second one louder. You can write, I am rich 100 times. But if your nervous system is locked in a loop of fear, the signal is weak, scattered, chaotic. And yet, no one talks about this. Why? Because we've built a culture obsessed with quick fixes and spiritual bypassing. We want to manifest without confronting the parts of us that feel unsafe. We want results without relationship, outcome without integration, power without embodiment. But the quantum doesn't care how pretty your rituals look. It cares how aligned your system is. Alignment is not just an idea. It's a physiological state, a vibrational truth, a whole body coherence that no vision board can fake. And here's where it gets real. Most people aren't failing to manifest. They're manifesting perfectly what their body still believes is safest. If your system is more familiar with rejection than connection, you will unconsciously push love away. If your nervous system has survived in survival mode for years, wealth will feel threatening even if you crave it. If your identity is built around the one who always struggles, then success will actually create panic. This is why you can do everything right and still sabotage it the moment it gets close. Not because you're cursed, but because you're scared and don't even know it. So what's the path forward? It's not about abandoning the tools. It's about going deeper than them. It's about why you're doing them, from where you're doing them, and what your nervous system is actually broadcasting while you're doing them. It's about choosing coherence over complexity. You don't need 20 techniques. You need one honest signal, embodied, rooted, alive. And this is exactly the space we're creating here. So if this resonates with you, if something inside you feels seen, remembered, or awakened, take a moment and subscribe, not out of pressure, but out of alignment. You're not just joining a channel, you're choosing coherence. And from that space, reality has no choice but to respond. There is a moment on the path of awakening when something inside you finally understands. I don't need to wait for the reality I desire to feel the emotions I crave. I can become the signal. Now. This is coherence, not as a concept, not as an affirmation, but as a lived, embodied state. It's when your thoughts, emotions, nervous system, breath, posture, and daily choices all begin pointing in the same direction. It's when your being stops contradicting itself and starts radiating a single, unified frequency. And this is where manifestation begins to feel less like trying and more like tuning, because coherence isn't something you do once. It's not a moment of clarity you stumble into by accident. It's a practice, a spiritual hygiene, a vibrational devotion. It's the daily act of becoming the version of you that no longer needs to chase anything, because they are already tuned to the timeline where it exists. Let me be clear, you don't attract what you want. You attract what you are. And you are what you consistently practice being. So ask yourself, how do I begin my mornings? What frequency do I tune into before anything else? Am I starting the day in alignment or in reaction? Because that moment between sleep and alertness is one of the most powerful tuning points in your entire day. It's where you choose scarcity or trust, pressure or presence, force or flow. And the choice you make then echoes into everything. Here's what coherence might look like practically. You wake up. You breathe before checking your phone. You place your hand on your heart and ask, what frequency am I selecting today? Not, what do I need to fix? Not what's missing, but who am I choosing to be now? And then throughout the day, you stay attuned to the signals of your body, because the body will tell you when you've fallen out of alignment. It will whisper through tension. It will nudge you with fatigue. It will signal through tightness, irritation, distraction. That's not failure. That's feedback. Your system doesn't want you to be perfect. It wants you to be present. So when you notice the wobble, you don't panic. You don't spiral. You just breathe. You ask, what would the version of me living in my desired timeline choose right now? And you take one small action from that place. One coherent breath. One loving pause. One honest decision. Because here's what most people don't realize. You're not waiting for coherence to arrive. You're building it, moment by moment. The more consistently you align, the more stable your frequency becomes. And the more stable your frequency, the faster the field mirrors it back. This is the difference between dabbling in manifestation and becoming the signal. And yes, there will be days when you forget. There will be moments when fear returns, when the old timeline pulls at you, when your body contracts, when your mind doubts. That's normal. You're human. But coherence isn't about never falling out of alignment. It's about how quickly you return to it, and each time you return, you strengthen the signal. Each time you pause, breathe, and recalibrate, you become more magnetic, more precise, more clear. This is the path of energetic mastery, not performance. Not pretending, but presence. So if you truly want to manifest differently, start living differently. Not someday, now. Become the version of you who already lives the life you seek, not through fantasy, but through frequency. And from that space, you no longer chase timelines. You anchor them. You've walked this far. You've felt the resonance. You've seen the layers. And now, something inside you knows. You were never chasing a new reality. You were being called back to your original frequency. The truth is simple. Not always easy, but always waiting. Manifestation is not something you do. It's who you are. It's not a system. It's a remembering. You are not a beggar in the universe. You are not a lost soul hoping for grace. You are not a frequency trying to be good enough to be heard. You are the field. You are the signal. You are the wave, the observer, and the chosen timeline all at once. The only thing standing between you and the life that's calling you is the version of you that keeps forgetting your power. But now, you remember. You remember that the universe doesn't respond to what you say. It responds to what you carry. You remember that coherence doesn't begin when the evidence arrives. It begins when the decision is made. You remember that alignment is not about suppressing emotion, but about becoming emotionally fluent, energetically honest, spiritually sovereign, and most of all, you remember that you never had to chase anything, because nothing that is yours can be withheld from the version of you who fully becomes it. So here we are, not at the end of a video, but at the beginning of a new timeline, one where you stop waiting, stop doubting, stop performing, and start living as the embodiment of what you already know is true, not perfectly, but consistently, because you don't need perfection. You need presence, you don't need control, you need clarity, you don't need to earn it, you need to receive it. So take one last breath with me. Let your shoulders drop. Feel the rhythm of your heart. Notice the calm behind your thoughts. That stillness. That's your gateway. That's the frequency that changes everything. Not because the world shifts, but because you did. And before you go, I want to invite you into something small but sacred. In the comments, write one word, just one. A word that captures the energy you're choosing to carry from this moment forward. Maybe it's clarity. Maybe it's wholeness. Maybe it's freedom, or maybe it's trust. Whatever it is, let it be your anchor, your declaration, your signal to the field. And if this video reminded you of something ancient and true inside you, subscribe. Not because you're supposed to, but because you're ready. Ready to walk this path of alignment, not alone, but with others who are remembering too. This isn't just a channel, it's a resonance. A space where we stop trying to become something and start revealing what we've always been. Thank you for walking this far. Thank you for your presence, your energy, your courage. Now go, live as the frequency, and let the field respond. The reality you've been seeking is already seeking you.